In the spirit of reconciliation, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples today. Welcome to Totally Lit, the podcast celebrating reading, writing and creating literature. I'm your host, Ky Garvey. Thank you for listening. Troy Hunter, welcome to Totally Lit.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm very sorry, listeners. Troy and I have been chatting for 25 minutes before we've even hit record, but it's been lovely to get to know Troy. I would love him, though, to share a little bit about himself so all of you can get to know him as well.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Troy Hunter. I'm a crime writer. I live in Melbourne now, and I work at Melbourne University. My debut novel was Gus and the Missing Boy, and it was published in March 2024. It's a YA mystery novel, and it was lucky enough to be shortlisted for the Ned Kelly Best Debut Crime Fiction Award and the Bad Sydney Danger Award for Best Debut Crime Fiction. Try saying that drunk. So I was really, really lucky. It's really unusual for YA books to be recognised like that. And then the sequel, Gus and the Burning Stones, came out in August last year. And I have a third and final Gus book, Gus and the Climate Killer, coming out in March next year. So, yeah, it's all been about YA crime. But sort of after this, I'll be working on adult crime. So that will be an interesting pivot. So, yeah.
How have you found YA crime? Was there anything that you had to revise in terms of the age group or anything like that? Or were you already thinking about what kind of crime you would have in the novels because you were writing for YA?
I have a story about this if you want. The first book, Gus and the Missing Boy, was actually an adult crime novel that I'd been writing on with 2 points of view and set in 2 time zones. It was all very complex. And I went to this fancy pitching session at the Wheeler Centre here in Melbourne where you could pitch to authors, but it was so crowded, I got in the wrong queue. And so I ended up in a YA queue. Like genuinely, it was so crowded, I couldn't see the sign on the desk until I was like 2 people away. So I had to refine the pitch in my head to make it YA. And the publisher I spoke to seemed quite interested and wanted to see the full manuscript. And so then I went home and spent the next 3 months turning it into a YA book. And speaking about what those changes are, I suppose there's certain sort of tropes around YA in the sense that it tends to be, by and large, contemporary, tends to be first person. And it tends to be in the present tense. So by looking at my book through that lens, I had to change it a lot and it actually became much better. So there's that element of it. But to your point, I was working with an editor. So when I was lucky enough to get the book deal, I was working with Maddie from Wakefield Press. And so she was really helpful in kind of showing me where the line was between YA and adult. So it's not like you have to cut out all of the complex, tricky stuff, but you probably don't dwell on it as much. Or, you
Are
won't
you
get
allowed to
quite
have a
as
murder
boring.
in a YA? Or
Yeah,
do you have
you
to restrict
can.
violence?
Yeah, so I mean, you can have a murder, but the murders tend to happen off the page. So it's not like an adult book where you might have this killer and, you stay with the killer for 2 pages while they're, stabbing someone to bits or something. So you wouldn't go there. So you can talk about tricky things, really complex themes, but you don't dwell on it and you don't get gratuitous, I suppose. So I feel like that's the difference. The storytelling itself isn't so different. I suppose a key part of YA is just that you're coming from a teenage perspective. So your protagonist tends to be a teenager. You probably wouldn't spend, a lot of time talking about, I don't know, drugs or I don't know. So there's a bunch of things it's not like you can't talk about them, but you don't dwell on them. That makes sense.
I think it's interesting too because young people are faced with all of those things. Like drugs,
Oh god, yeah.
alcohol, peer pressure, and we are all exposed to a level of violence. But I guess when you're producing something that's going to be mass produced in
Mm,
publication, where is the line? Like, because you want to be writing something that is relevant to your
yeah.
audience, but you
Mm.
do need to keep in mind what content you're producing because of the age of
Oh,
the people reading it.
absolutely. And yeah, look, being a teenager is like tough anytime, but I feel like this current generation of teenagers, I mean, they've got a lot to deal with.
Mm,
You've got all of the normal stuff like friends and sport and extracurricular stuff and, maybe part-time job, but you've got all of you've got the hellhole of social media and all of the other things going on as well. And I just remember, like, looking back, when I was growing up, I just worried about the usual stuff. I didn't have to think about, I don't know, climate change and that I'd never get a job or something like that. So
mm,
I feel like it's much, much harder these days. But I suppose, in my books, I talk about things like mental health, anxiety, self-harm, and you can do that without dwelling on it too much. But there are certain things you probably do. So, like, I may have characters that are experiencing mental health issues that their parents know and they are getting help. So you're trying to normalize that.
mm.
Yeah, you're trying to normalize that there's no shame about talking about these issues, and it's good. It's good for friends to have conversations about feelings. And yeah, so I feel like there's no point sugarcoating the world that teenagers are experiencing around them at the moment. But I try to, holistic sounds fancy, but try to have a broader view. And I just sort of think I don't just want someone plummeting into, a spiral of anxiety. I want their friends to be supporting them or their family, for instance. Or obviously, the first book's about kidnap. Like, if you thought you had been kidnapped as a child, that would be rather confronting. So, yeah, so they feel the feelings, but there's support there as well, if that makes sense.
Well, I think I read a lot of books when I was younger by John Marsden, and there were themes in his books that I had never been exposed to, where I was like the first time that I had read about interactions between a boy and a girl sexually, and me going, "Oh, I read that right? I'll reread that scene again. Yes, that is what I thought it was." I
Yeah.
didn't know people could write about those things, and, like, I'm talking about being 12 or 13 years old,
Mm.
and I think I can't remember, I think it's called there's one where he has the 2 girls writing letters to each other,
Oh,
and I
I know
think
the
one
one
of
you
the
mean.
girls is named Marina, maybe, and then the letters just suddenly stop, and there's, like,
Yeah.
no real you don't really know what has happened to the other girl. Yeah, he was really exploring things that it didn't necessarily happen every day, but are things that happen to young people,
Yeah.
and you're reading those things for the first time, going, "Oh, okay." It is good to get, like, a different perspective on the world, and that is when you're writing YA, you're really giving that opportunity to young people to explore themes that they may sometimes not be able to speak to someone about, but they can
Mm.
read about it.
I
What
think so.
sort of
Uh,
response have you had from young people about your books?
Um, Particularly the first one, the response was, like, very overwhelmingly positive, which was lovely. And, I got invited to go and speak at a high school up in the country and sort of talk to the kids there about the book. And it was very, very, it was the first time I'd done something like that. And it was very humbling to see not only had they read it, but they'd produced essays about the different themes. And,
Wow.
like, on the wall, there were, like, presentations and, like, quotes from the book and all of this sort of stuff. Like, it was really overwhelming. And the particular teacher had chosen the book just because I think she'd picked it up and thought it was interesting, but read it and liked that it covered all of these issues around, I don't know, money and underage drinking and a whole bunch of different stuff like that. But it did it in a interesting but fundamentally sort of responsible way. So there were things that would speak to her students. And she was, I should add, she was a low literacy specialist. So she was very keen to find anything, I think, that would really appeal and to get particularly the boys, but the girls as well, to get them reading. And so maybe part of the appeal was also I like to have really short chapters. I like the chapters to end on some sort of hook to keep you going. So I'm literally talking 2, 3 pages a chapter. So I think there was a bunch of reasons, but the overall response, yeah, it's sort of been lovely. I mean, you must find that too. It's like you put a book out in the world and you've got no idea. You've got no idea how it'll go. And so when you do get some sort of positive feedback, it just, yeah, I don't know, fills your heart with joy.
It is something I'm not sure how many authors do really think about what impact they make in the world in terms of you're writing your stories, you're passionate about getting them published, and
Mm,
then there's the other side where the book is published and you're suddenly interacting with people who are reading it, and it's a totally different experience. And if you don't
mm,
get published, you don't actually you never get to experience that wonderful other side of the writing
mm,
experience, which is interacting with your readers.
yeah.
Recently, a colleague of mine had bought a copy of my book for her nephew, and then she messaged me and she was like, "He's been asking to read it every night." So I've been reading it
Oh,
every night.
wow.
And like that, well, one, it's nice because that's what, when you're a picture book author, you want that wonderful
Mm,
experience where you're connecting a child with a parent and they're
yeah.
enjoying the experience of reading and having fun with the
But it
story.
happens over and over, which is far
Yeah.
less obviously with a novel. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
But
that's fantastic.
having that interaction afterwards, it's pretty awesome. And like you
Mm,
going to do school visits and getting feedback
mm.
that you're helping kids connect with literature. Like, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. I don't know, and a couple of kids in the class, kind of said things. And I just went, they'd be like, "Oh, you did X because of Y." And I'm like, "Oh,
Did I?
did I? Maybe." I think you've thought about that more deeply than I have. I was so impressed. Yeah, so no, the response has been really, really good. Like, it's very humbling. It's very humbling.
And you are super passionate about getting young men to read. Has that
Yeah.
been from your own experiences growing up, or where
I
has that
suppose I
passion
was
come from?
yeah. I suppose it's something I've thought about for a long time. I mean, I was sort of like your traditional nerd, just living in the library, just reading. But, I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of mates and cousins who were male that just sort of didn't. So I've always been kind of curious about that. And I felt like back in the day, maybe there was a kind of you're either academic or you're sporty and there's no in
Mm.
between and you just so I used to think about it a bit, but obviously moving into YA land, I was sort of thinking about it. I don't have stats. It feels like there are more YA books written by women, and that by definition often means that there are more YA books with female lead characters.
Mm.
And so the sort of research and the people I've spoken to, it seems like, there's a bunch of things happening. It's not just boys, but once you hit high school, once all of that kind of happens, the reading rates drop for boys and girls. It just tends to be worse for boys. And I think it's a combination of, I don't know, I guess reading becomes homework.
Mm.
You actually have homework and sport and you've got friends and all of the other stuff that's going on. So there's a lot of your life gets very busy and, you've probably on social media and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So books are competing with all of these life things that are
Yes.
going on and your social media. And, maybe you're having your first boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. So there's a lot competing, but I feel like there's more stigma about reading for boys than girls, and it feels like there's more. Sorry, sounds a far more binary conversation than I intend it to be, but regardless. So I've been really interested in it, and because, you know, I'm a male writer, but I'm a queer writer, so how does that all sort of play out? And I guess the
Mm.
things that I've sort of discovered is that, and it's not rocket science, but boys like books that have male protagonists in them.
Yeah.
And sometimes a lot of YA books will have like a romance interest that does seem to interest boys less. But as I've dug into it, the things that I find really interesting, it seems like, some of the advice is the best way to make sure that your boys read is to have their father to read to them from a young
Yeah.
age,
Mm.
for their father to be reading and kind of normalize that as male behavior in the house, which is good if there's a dad around, but that's not everyone's life situation. But I just thought that was interesting. And then I talk to parents and I hear all of their strategies, like everything from, you no screens until you've read for half an hour, to buying books and leaving them all around the house, to giving them book vouchers, to going to the library with them every week and talking to librarians, or going to a bookshop and getting advice from booksellers. But so all of these kind of different things. And yes, I've become more and more interested in this. And the more I speak to people, I think the other thing that kind of comes up is it doesn't matter if they're reading comics, if they're reading, manga, like reading is good, whatever it is. A bit like it doesn't matter if they're reading a physical book versus an ebook versus listening to an audio book. Just the act of reading in of itself is, I guess, like the goal. So yeah, I don't have a I don't have great answers for it, but I'm more and more interested in it, and to the point where, I'm trying to almost like develop up some kind of, I want to say, workshop or program that might help with this, but it's pretty early days. So yeah.
There's been such a change in like this past century, this last 100 years, where there's been women didn't have access to education in the
Mm,
same way that they do now. So there was a time when reading and writing novels was something that men could do that women could not. And yet
mm,
there's now been such a change where all the book clubs seem to be for women.
mm.
There's a really burgeoning, strong publishing industry for women.
I do think there are stats, aren't they, that sort of show that, I'll get this wrong, but like 70% of books are bought by women, and
Mm.
men, far more men buy nonfiction and those sort of business books and, how to get ahead books and things like that. Like it's just, they're just stats. They're not absolute, but it is interesting. It's women writing fiction predominantly. It's women buying and reading fiction predominantly. So yeah, it's a kind of curious thing, and it's shifting. It's a kind of sort of intriguing dichotomy. I think going back to the teenage boy thing, everything that I've read and looked into does sort of suggest that teenage boys still feel like, or will be labeled as a nerd if they're reading, whereas girls won't, or and if they are, they don't care. So
Yeah.
I think there seems to be, I really can't talk. Girls
It's okay.
perceive more value in reading than boys, by and large, it seems.
We're
Yeah,
just two
so
podcasters who can't string words together
can't string a
tonight.
sentence together.
I
Oh
have two
god.
sons, and I'm very passionate about literacy for boys.
Mm.
Like, it was very difficult to get them to read, but I'm not sure if it actually has anything to do with them being on the spectrum or just a boy thing.
Well, what strategies did you use? Like, what did you find worked?
I just had to meet them where they were. So with my little guy, he was 10 and we were still like
reading Where's Wally together. But even though there weren't many words on the page, I was encouraging us holding the book and turning the pages, and that precious time that you have together. Like, I still wanted
Mm.
that for him. So I had to kind of let go of, okay, there's not a lot of words in this book. We're just spotting Wally on the page. But there's more to this experience than just learning to read. There's also that closeness. And I hope he will look back and have memories of us sitting together, enjoying that
Yeah,
quality time. Mm.
sure he will.
But they really did not want to pick up a book. And every time each year level, they would get assigned the curriculum, and I would get super excited. Oh, year 11, we're doing Romeo and Juliet. I'm like, oh yes, let's watch the movie. And I'd walk around the house reciting the lines from
Okay.
Romeo and Juliet, and they're like, oh, Mum, cringe. And yeah, I just had to let them come to reading rather than me forcing reading on them. And
Mm.
especially my younger guy, he just suddenly came home from the library with The Power of One and devoured
Okay.
it. But it took
Yeah.
him till he was 16 before he would read. But I was so shocked that he went from Where's Wally to Power of One. It felt
It's a
like
bit of a leap.
a giant leap. I'm like, how did that happen? And then he came to me in tears because the end is brutal of that
Yeah,
book.
yeah. It's
It's like, Mom.
not an easy end. No.
And I'm like, but that's what reading is like. Like, it's so
Mm.
powerful, and you learn about a totally different world. Like, it transports
Yeah.
you somewhere else. You see, and it's almost like you are experiencing what those characters are experiencing.
Mm.
So he did leap from hardly reading at all to reading novels.
Yeah.
So then I was like, yes, but I can't claim it wasn't anything I did. I had to let them grow and mature and come to it
Mm.
themselves. So I don't have any answers to the literacy and boys problem, other than I think that you just have to let them come to the realization themselves.
Mm.
Um,
I think that's it though. You go to high school and suddenly you have to read for homework. Like reading becomes a job, it's a chore. You're not choosing what you read. So it changes people's relationship with it. It stops being fun. And so I guess if people are just pushing books at you, I don't know, it's tricky. But
and he really
yeah.
liked the book Wonder that they made the movie into
Oh
as
yeah.
well. He enjoys books where he can connect with the characters. So I think
Yeah.
that's helpful if there are books that boys can relate to.
I must admit, the reports and stuff that I've seen, there's a real sort of boys don't want to read romance by and
Yeah.
large, and so I think that's interesting. And maybe not that it was deliberate, but maybe that's why doing things like YA crime, YA mystery has kind of worked quite well because you have that sort of puzzle element. So there's a whodunit, there's a puzzle to be solved. Hopefully, there's interesting characters. So I think that can be more fun. And honestly, I couldn't write romance if my life depended. So yeah, I find crime more interesting to read as
Mm.
well as to write. So I don't know if
I'm
that's a boy thing.
a bit the same. I think what I'll be writing is more middle grade than YA, but I do have
Mhm.
a novel I'd like to write, and I really don't want to include any romance in it. But I am also like, well, if I'm writing what teenagers are usually exposed to, there should be maybe one or two characters that are in a relationship, maybe, because it is normal. Like, usually you have at least one friend who has a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah, I'm just thinking with middle grade, I mean, it is skewed a bit younger, but it does feel like someone should at least be having crushes, I think,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Lots of crushes.
And now you told me something that I'm not sure if it's much of a secret or if everybody already knows this, but you are a bit of an Agatha Christie fan,
Yes, it's a very
or
poorly kept
are
secret
you
if it's a
an
secret.
expert, a Christie expert?
Oh, I wouldn't I wouldn't dare say that, but I guess I am a passionate Agatha Christie fan. And while I can't remember anything important, I can remember large details about her books and her
Mm.
characters. So,
There are a lot of
yeah.
books, so that's impressive as well to
Well,
remember
yeah, I
all the
mean,
plots and
yeah,
characters.
I do know these stats off by heart. So yeah, like she wrote 66 books. So 66 full-length novels, 14 short story collections, and also, like a bunch of plays. And, not only is she, the world's best-selling novelist, and it's an oldie but a goodie. The only things that outsell Agatha Christie are Shakespeare and the Bible. So just to put her in context. But also because she wrote The Mousetrap, which has been running in London since the early 50s. Like, she's also one of the world's most successful playwrights. So, yeah,
Been to see The Mousetrap?
I did. I
Seen it?
lived in London in my 20s, and it's one of the things that I was very kind of keen to do. And not that I'm going to give anything away, but I figured out who did it, and that made me feel very smug. I was very happy with that. But I went in going, I've read every one of her bloody books. I should be able to figure this out despite the fact that it's meant to have a really surprise ending. But I did figure it out. So I was very happy. But yeah, so that Agatha Christie thing, I have been sort of starting to do a few different sessions and things about Agatha Christie, which has been really, really enjoyable because even if you haven't read Agatha Christie books, maybe you've watched the Poirot series or you've seen the film Death on the Nile or whatever. So I think Agatha Christie is so well known. She's like a brand or a genre
Mm.
rather than an author at this point. Yeah, I found doing presentations about Agatha, people will come along even though they don't really necessarily read her books, but they've watched a couple of episodes of Marple or something and they just find it interesting. And it is interesting. And last year I was lucky enough to be able to speak at the International Agatha Christie
That's
Festival
so
in the UK.
exciting.
So yeah,
That
that
is
was
next
a
level,
big
Troy.
deal.
Peak
I know.
peak
I
career
I was with
highlight.
hardcore people. And I was very much not the expert in that room. But I did talk about the portrayal of teenagers in Agatha Christie. So that was a lot of Agatha's books have been picked over for all of these different sorts of topics. But that was a topic that no one had tackled or no one that I could find anyway. So yes, I had a lot of looking at that and tying this all weirdly seamlessly back. It was interesting watching a woman who was writing over a period of 50 years and really reflecting society. So you see how the role of teenagers or how teenagers worked in these books changed over the years. And I thought that was very sort of interesting because, she sort of stopped writing around the time that YA became popular. So you could kind of see how teenagers were portrayed in popular literature kind of like all the way through. So, yeah, I was very humbled to be able to do that presentation, but it's also just a lot of fun doing the research. So,
Oh, I can
yeah.
imagine. I traditionally had the Agatha Christie experience from the like her movies being played on a Saturday afternoon on TV
Yeah.
and watching with my mum. And when I was at university, I did a subject where I had to read What Do We Do About Evans, I think it's called. The
Why didn't they ask
Yeah,
Evans?
why didn't they ask Evans? And then like the whole book is based on that phrase and they've got to figure out
Mm,
why.
mm,
But I also had to read about her life as well. And I found her to be so interesting a person.
mm,
And for at that time, I had two little boys and I was doing my Bachelor of Arts degree. I'd found myself as a single mum and I just found her so inspiring. I was like, oh my goodness,
mm,
she made a wonderful comeback. Like her life had hit
mm.
rock bottom. She's
Yeah.
like, I've got to make this thing work. I'm going to churn these books out.
Yeah.
I was like,
No,
oh,
that's true.
amazing. And then
Do-
meeting her archaeologist, I'm like, yes, girl. All right.
yeah. Yeah, no, look, I mean, she had an interesting life. She came from money, so that's always a nice start. But then the
Yeah.
family lost money.
Mm.
So, yeah, so she did have a very interesting life, and I think that her life was quite unusual for a woman of that era, the amount of traveling she did all the time in the Middle East. I mean, yes, she's married to an archaeologist, but even like a white woman being at some of those archaeological digs back in the day. So, no, she's sort of fascinating, and she would have been one of those people that would be amazing to meet because just the thought processes and the way her brain must work to craft some of these incredible mysteries and plots and red herrings and things like that. She'd be, yeah, I don't know, maybe that was all internal and maybe she wasn't a great dinner party guest, but it'd just be so much fun to talk to her.
Well, I think that possibly it would only be fun to talk to her if she liked you. I have a
Yeah.
feeling like if she didn't like you, you would be in trouble having a
Yes.
conversation with her.
There's that lovely old fashioned phrase that sort of, what is it? Doesn't tolerate fools.
Yes, yeah, that that's her.
It's something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
What is it?
So,
They don't tolerate fools lightly, maybe?
don't tolerate fools gladly. I don't remember. There's that old saying.
She would not be happy with us at all right now.
Yeah.
But I do always
Yeah.
say she's someone I would like at a dinner party.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the one thing I'm intrigued by is her little disappearance that she had,
Mm.
where it's a big mystery. But also, I think when you've been through a breakup, you get that, yes, I can understand checking out for a
Yeah.
while and not telling anyone.
Her disappearance, I find more people are interested in than almost any other aspect of her life. And I must admit, I'm not. And I
Mm.
can't even explain why. But there is something.
To me, it's not really a big mystery. Like,
Mm,
if you have loved someone and they have hurt you,
mm.
because you sometimes can love people who are that wrong for you.
Oh,
And yeah, I can, yeah, identify with, I love this person. They don't love me
mm,
back. I could,
mm.
yeah, understand that needing to be away for a while.
Yeah.
I think the problem is when you have the eyes of the whole world on you all the time,
Mm.
how do you get away? How do you
Exactly.
grieve something in private? You do have to kind of just
Mm.
disappear yourself.
Yeah, and there was cynicism around it because she's a mother and she didn't take a child, and because she was a popular author, it was seen as a marketing exercise. And in some ways, I think they were harsh, but neither of those things are unreasonable in a way because her books were all about disappearances and murders and puzzles and
Mm,
intrigue. Then the fact that she did it in that way maybe speaks more to just combine the way her mind works plus her own, where her mental health was at the time. And so these two things come together and
mm.
off she goes. So yeah, it's tricky stuff. She wouldn't suffer fools gladly. That's the saying.
Yep,
Wouldn't
that
suffer
sounds like
fools
it.
gladly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it didn't help that she never wanted to talk about that time in her life either. Like,
Yeah.
people kept trying to ask her about it. She was like, no,
Mm.
no, we're not talking
And
about
it's not even in her autobiography. So yeah, maybe it really was a kind of a breakdown that perhaps she never even actually remembered a lot of the detail from. Who knows?
it. Mm.
But yeah, I think that circling back to what you were saying, sort of originally, there's something really powerful about the way that she can write a really compelling puzzle. And her writing is, I described it to someone the other day. I said she's a bit like, I think this of Stephen King a little bit as well. They're a bit like Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton used to say, it costs a lot to look this cheap. And
Yeah.
I always think with Stephen King and Agatha Christie, it takes a lot of work to write this simply and succinctly. So I think people dismiss them both as not great literature or slide them into pure genre like, crime and horror. I think they do that because of the stuff that they write, but they also misinterpret the clarity and simplicity of their writing. I think they misinterpret that as not having much literary value. And it feels like it wasn't until like the 70s or 80s that either of them ever got kind of analyzed at academic level, for instance, or things like that. And so I think, yeah, genre fiction has kind of gone through a renewal and, certainly in the latter part, the last century, which sounds so that's so long ago, I guess it is.
We haven't been
Um,
alive that long, surely.
couldn't possibly remember. But yeah, so I think that it's something I've thought about with my own writing. Like obviously when you're writing first person from a teenage voice, you're not going to be using too many highfalutin words, and you're not going to do some of the literary things like spending 2 pages describing a room or a chair or something. So I try to emulate the things that I really respect about kind of her writing and other writers like Stephen King, and that sort of kind of get to the nitty-gritty of the story and just keep the reader turning the pages and keep them intrigued, hopefully.
Well, that's really like the goal, isn't it? You want to write something that people want to read. Like, you want
Yes.
them to enjoy it.
Yeah. I
Uh,
don't have it in me to write something so arty that it would ever be studied as literature, and I don't think I'd want to. I'm much more interested in telling a good yarn and
yeah.
hopefully leading the reader up the garden path so they don't realize. So they get that sort of lovely. I mean, I think that's why crime writing continues to be, it endures as this really, really kind of popular genre because people do enjoy the whodunit and they enjoy like, you can go very dark in crime novels, but there's a safety in the fact that it's in the book.
Yes.
It's not kind of happening to you. So, these crime books, you have all of this wonderful, I don't know, like conflict and these puzzles. You can experience fear, but it's a safe fear. And I think the other reason that crime is really, really popular is that there tends to be a sense of justice at the end. So, even whatever horrific things, whatever awful crimes happen and all of the repercussions to families, there's a conclusion of sorts. Like, there are consequences, but the world, by and large, kind of resolves itself. And I think I read a study somewhere that I think it always used to be romance was a bit higher than crime in terms of being best-selling, but it was during COVID that this one report said, at least, that crime overtook romance as the biggest selling genre. And I can see why, because as the world's kind of locked in, they really did want to know that
Yes.
there would be an end to
Everything is
this
going
and
to
there
be
would
all
be
right.
the world would resolve itself. And I think that's what crime gives you. Like something awful happens, but there's a detective, and whether they're an amateur detective or police, but someone will solve that crime and justice will be seen to be done. So, yeah, good old crime.
So I have a few questions for you, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Do you have a piece of advice that you would give to a writer such as yourself at the beginning of their career? Have you got any tips to share?
If you mean someone that hasn't been published yet,
Yeah.
I think that the best bit of advice I could give, and I don't know that it's advice. I don't know that I'm the right person to ask, but my personal belief is that one of the most important things that you can do is finish something. So
Mhm.
if you're writing a book, whoever it's for, I do think the first draft will be awful. Like, it'll be really terrible, but there's so much to be learned about your writing and your story by writing the whole thing, no matter how bad it is. So I think it's really important to finish something because I think that, I think the world is full of people who started a book and didn't know where to go with it or didn't have the confidence to do anything with it. And so it sits in the bottom drawer, that, metaphorical bottom, well, sometimes literal, but metaphorical bottom drawer. And I think the difference between a writer who, maybe writes on the weekend and an author who I guess is a writer that gets published is that they finished something and they were you know, whether the finishing something is one thing. I think the other bit of advice is, if you're not already, get into a writing group. Find a writing group somewhere that, you can be sharing bits of your writing with other people, and hopefully in a sort of supportive critique kind of way. Because I think you need to be able to finish something, but you also need the, I don't know, the confidence and the feedback that other writers give you to help you finish or refine the book. So they're my two
Yeah.
things. Get in a writers group and finish something.
I do think too, getting feedback is amazing to help you, like, because sometimes it feels like, am I really doing this? Am I trying something that I can actually do? And having
Yeah.
feedback from other writers, especially as you mature and grow as a writer, getting feedback from established, published
Mm,
authors that have got a bit of knowledge and experience, like, it's really a boost to your confidence when
mm,
people are saying, "Hey, you're on the right direction.
yeah.
Keep
You
keep
really do need
going."
to know that, don't you? Yeah.
Well, if you've written 80,000 words and it's
Mm,
clear you need help, it's better to have that help along the way, because it
mm,
is a lot of time you're investing. And,
mm,
like, many writers have natural talent, but there's also an art, and you learn and change the more you write. So
mm,
it's helpful. I think it's great to have a mentor or writing buddies who can encourage you, but also guide you. Like, even you might be stuck on a plot point and someone can say,
mm,
why not try this? And it doesn't
mm.
mean that you haven't written a great piece of work, but it is
No.
great to, if you're stuck on something, for someone to go, hey, try this, or go in this
Mm,
direction, or maybe change from first person to third person, or um,
yeah.
but you don't, I guess writing is so isolating, like you're by yourself a lot. Having those
Mm,
writing pals around you is really
mm.
helpful.
I've sort of joked, like, being in a writers group is like AA or something. It's like only the other people in the group can understand how you can agonize over the structure of, I don't know, a plot point or a paragraph or something, and your friends and family might listen to you as you bang on about it, but their eyes will probably glaze over. So, yeah,
Or
there is
even,
something
like,
about being able to have those discussions.
you'll send something to an agent and they'll respond, and then you have to dissect that email. What do you think that means? Do you think that
And
that
you
means
do.
anything at all? And having those people around
Yeah.
you who understand
Mm.
the agony
Yeah.
of being a
Yeah.
writer,
Absolutely. All
you
of
need
the
perspectives
the
on
the
the
highs and
person.
lows of it all. Yeah.
And what do you think young Troy, so teenage Troy, you did mention that he was a nerd. How do you think
Mm.
what would he think of your career now?
I mean, I'm sure he'd be thrilled. I don't know what you were like, but I used to have this big bookcase in my bedroom, and it was full of books from the secondhand bookshop. And yeah, and I used to wonder what it'd be like to have my name on, you know, on the spine, sort of facing out. I've always, that was kind of always a thing. And so, yeah, I think he'd be thrilled. I definitely think he'd be thrilled. Probably the only other thing he'd be is sort of like, "Why did you wait until why did you wait so long?" Because I really didn't I did a lot of writing in my teenage years and in my 20s, and then sort of from about 30 to basically 30 to 50, it was all work and life and other things, and it was kind of back once I hit 50 that I really wanted to give it all a crack, like a proper go. And so yeah, younger Troy would be thrilled, but he'd also be like, "Why did you wait?"
Yeah, that's, if I go back to younger Kylie, I would, she would be going, "Why did you not just start
Do it. Yeah,
earlier?" Because I
yeah.
waited till I was 39 to start writing. So I did my
Mm,
degree when my little boys were little. They're now big, massive Vikings, but at the time they were little boys, on my knee, I was doing all my assignments. And yeah, before that, I just worked at a bank. I was like, oh, I would like to write one day. But I was always talking about it, like one day in the future.
Yeah.
My dream is to have a published book, but I did not do anything to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
Then as I got close to 40, I was like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. Do it now.
No.
So, and that is now I do sometimes calculate this is how many years I possibly have left. That time is shrinking.
I've totally
Get
done
some
that
more
too.
writing done.
I absolutely do that too. I'm just sort of like, I've got a lot of stories in my head.
Yes.
I have to make sure I get them out in the years I've got left. It makes me sound like I'm decrepit, but you know what I mean.
Well, you are talking to a lady who's just had a hip replacement, so I'm more decrepit than you are.
Well, you're still in your 40s though.
I'm not letting life get me down at the moment. I did have a few moments last week where I was like, oh, I cannot believe this is my life, hobbling around with my crutches. And then I was just like, oh, this is just a blip. There's
Yeah.
plenty more of good things to come. So,
Oh,
um,
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's freeing you up, isn't it? It's solving a problem and
mm.
freeing you up. So, yeah.
We were discussing earlier, listeners, about the chats we have with lots of authors and some of the psychology that it really reveals about ourselves. And I'm like, oh my goodness, people will be listening to my podcast thinking I'm the most depressed person in the world. So I seem to be with each episode revealing more and more about all my little quirks and worries and anxieties that I have. But I'm just broadcasting it all to the world. So
Oh, there you
totally
go.
it
Like it.
doubles as
Yeah.
a psychology session for me.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to turn into one of those. What did a friend call it? One of those toxic positivity people. Like you don't want to
Yes.
go there either.
But I think we all have natural doubts and dark thoughts at times. I have a very dark sense of humor. So usually if I say something, it's because I think it's funny. And I'm like, oh, other people don't think that's fun. Okay, I might have to learn to
Yeah.
self-edit myself on that. But, but I think
I
the
the dark stuff
artistic,
is funny sometimes. Yeah.
yes, yes. Well, my husband and I kind of joke, like if we've had a really rough week and we're like, oh, it's okay, we'll be dead soon. And I'm like, oh, we probably shouldn't say that to
It'll
too
all be
many
over
people.
soon.
Having an ambulance or somebody do a welfare check on us.
Oh God.
Um,
Oh, don't say that.
but I think though the reality of being a writer is that most of the time it's rejection and it's difficult to keep going at times. But then
Hmm,
the highs are amazing. Like if you get something published or you get acknowledged
hmm.
in some way, it's wonderful. And then those
It really is.
benefits of connecting with your readers and seeing
Hmm.
some of the ripples that you have in the world, like I think that's really amazing. And it's like, okay, yeah, the world is good sometimes.
The world is always better with more books in it. And
Yes,
if one of those books can be yours, that's even better still.
yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Troy. It's been great to chat
Oh, thank
and
you.
to get to know you a bit better. We seem to have heaps in common, which is cool. Although you're all the way in Melbourne, so I'm
I
hoping
know.
your next tour you can make it up to Brisbane.
Yeah, well, I will be. Oh no, that's not till later in the year. I will be up there at some point. So yes, we'll have to catch up in person if you've got the time.
That's the best part of podcasting. It does take up a lot of time, but every week I make a new writing friend. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Mm. It's hard to explain, but once you are sort of published, it's like this community sort of forms around you, doesn't it? Like you get
Yeah.
to meet all of these other writers, and whether that's through your publisher or just you make other writer friends, or you're going to book launches or different events like that, or even, if you're lucky enough to get invited to writers' festivals. But you just, once you're published, I think that, there's this community this writing community that just kind of opens its arms to you.
Yeah.
And it's a very warm, inclusive embrace. It's really, really lovely.
So everybody keep writing, keep submitting,
Keep
get
writing.
published. Go to writers groups, because there's really no difference between a published author and an aspiring author, except for the published author has finished writing their
Yes.
book and submitted it. So
Yeah. And I do get it, though. I really do. I know several people I think are wonderful writers, but they find themselves perhaps unable to finish a book. And on some level, maybe that is because if they finished it, they'd have to send it to someone and it might be rejected. And that could well break their heart. And, maybe it would, but rejection can kind of be part of the process in a way. So
yes,
it's
the way
better
I've
to
been
have
looking at
loved and lost
rejection,
than never to have loved at all, kind of thing.
I'm like, I'm a real author. I got a rejection today.
Yeah, that's right. It's a numbers game. It's also an enormous amount of luck. Like it's
Yeah.
just your manuscript landing on the desk or inbox of the right person at the right publisher at the right time. So so much of it is luck. So
But can you imagine if you had gone to that pitching session and went, oh, I'm in the wrong line, and just walked away and went home?
Yeah, that's a
Like,
good
instead of going,
point.
I've got to think quick, how can I
Yeah.
make this situation work? And I think that
Yeah.
sometimes you've just got to go, I'm on the spot. What do I do with
Yeah.
this? Got to try and figure it out. And
Yeah.
sometimes,
I should add, I never finished that story. So I did turn the book into a YA book, and then I sent it to her and she had left publishing completely. So I did have to start again, but I had a finished YA book in my hand. So I had something to sort of start with. But it's weird that I forgot to finish that story.
thank you so much for joining me. It's been fab to get to know you. And I have talked so much, I'm losing my voice now.
No, it's been lovely talking to you too.
Thank you so much, Troy.
Totally Lit is an independent podcast. You can help support us to continue to chat with wonderful Australian creatives by leaving a review on iTunes or sharing our socials with your friends. You can also make a contribution at www.buymeacoffee.com/totally-lit. This will also help with equipment and podcasting platform fees. I love to interact with our listeners, so feel free to say hello either by email or social media at totallylitpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn and Twitter, and now Blue Sky. I've also created a group on Facebook called the Totally Lit Writing Community. It's a space to continue the conversation and share your writing successes, events, launches, and latest projects. Jump into the group and say hello. Thank you for listening to Totally Lit, and don't forget to go out into the world to read, write, create, ignite.